How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Samach Vav, Daf 66 of Masechta BavaMetzia. Friends. Yo, friends, more Ezu Neshech. What do you want me to tell you? Wow. All right, let's do it. So today we're starting off with the second part of the Mishnah that we learned yesterday, which is that if Shimon lends Reuven $1,000 and says, Reuven, if you don't pay me back $1,000 within 3 years, right? So if after 3 years you haven't paid me back the $1,000, I'm taking your field. Taking your field. Even though the field is worth much more than $1,000, it says I'm taking the field. And this is unlike, for like what we've talked about in the past, which is, a karka that's meshubed to a loan, and that you could take kind of the part of the property that, if it lent you $1,000, so then you could take $1,000 worth of property. And we've also learned from the pasuk of, what was the pasuk that we quoted? I don't remember what the pasuk is now, but you should give back the property. Where is it? Maybe on, what was it? Maybe Tesvav or something? What was it? Is there a pasuk over there? Tezayin or something? Oh, there it is. Tezayin base. Vasitzo Yoshev Atov Bnei Hashem. That if he kind of then comes up with the money, you should really give him back the property. This is an under azach. This is not karka that's meshubah to the loan. This is pashit. If you don't pay me by a certain date, you agree that I get to take your house or whatever it is. So that we can even read it in the Mishnah. It says, right, I'm reading from the Mishnah on Daf Samachay Amud Beis. Hilveu al Sadeu, if Shimon lends Reuven $1,000, right, v'amar and he says to Reuven, Im iyata nosin li mikan v'ad shalosh shanim, if you don't pay me back within 3 years, comes 3 years from now, you haven't paid me back, arei shali, I'm taking your field. Arei shalo. So then it says, wait, what's all that noise? I'm just very curious. Oh, perfect timing. I think somebody's vacuuming upstairs. Okay. Sorry, friends. Sorry for the vacuuming. Yeah, we got a new vacuum, so that's a very popular activity these days. The vacuum. Okay. Fine. So, sorry. Anyways, so where are we? Okay, fine. So that's kind of the scenario that we are talking about now. All right. So we're on Daf Samach Vav, Amud Aleph, about halfway through the Amud at the 2 dots. So Shimon lent Reuven $1,000, and he says, Reuven, you don't pay me back in 3 years, I get your field. Amr Rafuna says, Rafuna b'shas ma'in ma'os kana hakol la'acher ma'in ma'os lo kana ela keneged ma'osav. Rav Nachman Omar mafil la'acher ma'in ma'os kana hakol. Okay, so let's read that again. Amr Rafuna says, Rafuna b'shas ma'in ma'os kana hakol. So if this stipulation was made at the time that the money was given, so Shimon gives $1,000 to Reuven and says, hey Reuven, here's $1,000, you have 3 years to pay it back, you don't pay it back in 3 years, I get your field. So Beseder, so comes 3 years, he hasn't paid him back, Shimon Pashit gets the whole field. La'achar ma'in mos, if the stipulation was made afterwards, it was made a day later, a week later, whatever it is, after, Shimon lends Reuven $1,000 and then at some later point he says, Reuven, if you don't pay me back by the end of 3 years, I'm taking your field. Well then, lokana ela keneged ma'osav. You wouldn't get the whole field. You only get $1,000 worth of it. Rav Nachman Omer says, Rav Nachman, I feel la'achar ma'in mos. Even if later on, right, Shimon lends $1,000 to Reuven, and then at some later point he says, hey, if you don't pay me back within 3 years, I'm taking your field. Kana akol, he gets the whole field. Ovid Rav Nachman Uvda Gabereish Gelusa Kishmaite. Now, Rav Nachman once paskined like this, right? Meaning Rav Nachman had just said that even at a later point you can make this stipulation and get the whole field. And he once paskined this way for the Reish Gelusa. Now he was married, he was mishpacha with the Reish Gelusa. I think he was the son-in-law of the Reish Gelusa. Anyways, so he once Taka did this. I guess the Reish Gelusa had loaned money, and they made a stipulation, I guess after the fact, that if you don't pay back by a certain time, we're taking your field. Kare Rav Yehuda l'shtari, but Rav Yehuda, however, tore up the document. Tore up, I guess, whatever document was written on this deal. Amar Reish Gelusa. So now Reish Gelusa says to Rav Nachman, Rav Yehuda kare l'shtarich. Rav Yehuda tore up your document. Amar lei. To which Rav Nachman says, wow, okay. Dardika kare, what? Do you think that just like a young child tore up this document? Gavi Rabba kare. Chazabei time of a kare. Rav Yehuda is a great person, a great Talmid Chacham, a great rabbi. And if he tore up the document, there must have been a reason for it. Ikadam, those who say fakert, Amalei, that Rav Nachman says, Dardika kare, that a child tore up the document, because everybody relative to me, compared to me, when it comes to dinim, when it comes to halachis, when it comes to civil law, I'm the expert. Everybody is considered a child compared to me, and it's as though a child tore up my document. Hadar Amar of Nachman, but then Rav Nachman does a full 180, or 360, 180, probably 180. Hadavar of Nachman, afilu b'shas ma'in moz lo kana v'lo klum. Ho. Rav Nachman then does a total 180, 360, whichever one means that he totally mamish changed directions. And he says, under no circumstance would the entire field go to Shimon. Even if at the time that Shimon gives the $1,000 to Reuven, he says, Reuven, you have 3 years to return it. If not, I get your field. Does not work. Let's go weiter. But we have a kasha. How could Rav Nachman say that it doesn't work at all? Rav Nachman, im iatanos li mikan v'ad shalosh shanim, harei hi sheli, harei shelo. But the Mishnah Pashut says that if Shimon gives $1,000 to Reuven, it says, if you don't pay me back within 3 years, I get your field. The Mishnah says that works. How could Rav Nachman say that it's no work, that it's no good, that it doesn't work? So Omar Lei, so Rav Nachman responds, Ani Omar asmachta kanya umanyomi Omar asmachta lo kanya. I initially had thought asmachta kanya, but Manyomi holds that asmachta lo kanya, and I guess that Rav Nachman then changed his mind to hold like Manyomi. What's asmachta kanya? Asmachta kanya is when you say something outlandish, something that doesn't make any sense, because you figured it's not actually, it's never going to actually happen, right? It's like, when pigs fly or something, right? The assumption is pigs are never going to fly, right? If you say, I'll give you $1 million when pigs fly, all of a sudden pigs fly, now what, So asmachta lo kanya, you say something crazy, it's not really, it's not to be taken in a real way. So therefore, Reuven borrows $1,000 and agrees that if he doesn't pay it back within 3 years, his field that's worth $1 million is going to go to Shimon. That's crazy. Yeah, he said, meaning he didn't think that it was something that would ever actually happen. He figured, of course, he was going to pay back the $1,000. It was never going to get to a point where, obviously, the point was he was so confident that he was going to repay this thing that, he said, yeah, and if I don't repay you can have my field. Yeah, sure, but obviously I'm going to repay you. So the question is, if it does come to, if it does actually happen that Reuven does not pay him back, so now what? Does Shimon actually get the field or not? If you say asmachta kanya, that yeah, he said something outlandish, but at the end of the day, it's real. and the field belongs to Shimon. Or do you say asmachta lo kanya? When you say something crazy like that, it's not actually going to make a real kinyan. So initially, Rav Nachman thought to say asmachta kanya, that it's a real kinyan. So much so that even if they agreed on it after the fact, it would be binding. But then he held like Manyomi, who says that asmachta lo kanya, and therefore comes 3 years and Reuven hasn't paid Shimon. Shimon doesn't get his field. That's crazy. Vila Manyomi kasha masnisim, but still, according to Manyomi, according to opinion that asmachta lo kanya, then what do you do with our Mishnah that says that Shimon gets the field? So there's two ways we can answer. Iba is saying masnisim. Rabbi Yossi the Amar asmachta kanya. You could say, who's the author of our Mishnah? Rabbi Yossi is the author of our Mishnah. Rabbi Yossi holds asmachta kanya. The Rabbanan hold asmachta lo kanya. So you could say that the author of our Mishnah is Rabbi Yossi. Iba is saying alternatively, the Amar le kni me achshav shnaikis. Alternatively, Shimon. So Ruvain, I believe, says already acquire it from now. So right. So but okay. So if I'm understanding correctly, basically what's happening. Alternatively, you can explain the Mishnah that what's happening is that Shimon's be'etzem buying the field right now for a very cheap price. Who's here? Why are people here? So Be'etzim Shimon is buying the field for a very cheap price right now. So Be'etzim Shimon is giving $1,000 to Ruvain as a loan, and he's buying his $1 million field for $1,000 right now, with the understanding that comes 3 years. That within 3 years, Ruvain gives Shimon $1,000, and then Shimon accepts $1,000 and returns the field to Ruvain. So in that case, it's not an asmachta, because of the way that asmachta works, as we're going to learn later, is that it's part of it's like it gets triggered. It's an if, right? It's like, yeah, sure, yeah, I'll give you my field if I don't pay you back, but obviously I'm going to pay. It's like a theoretical. Asmachta is like, yeah, sure, in the event that I don't pay, that's a theoretical. If I don't pay you back, of course I'm going to pay you back, right? So an asmachta would be like, if I don't pay you back, you can have my field. It was completely theoretical. He didn't think it was actually going to happen. But this is different. What's happening now is Shimon is be'etzem buying Ruvain's field for a very cheap price, for $1,000. And right now, and he owns it now, with the understanding that at any point within 3 years, Ruvain can essentially give him the money and he'll give back the field. But after 3 years, it becomes permanent. So therefore, it's not actually a case in our Mishnah of asmachta, because asmachta would be something that gets triggered later on. This is actually happening right now. Okay. Amar Yanuka umarkshisha bnei d'Rav Chizda l'Rav Ashi ochi amin ardai mishmei d'Rav Nachman hay asmachta bizmane kanya below zmane lo kanya. Oh my gosh. Okay. All right, let's read it again. So, Amalei Maryanuka Markshisha Bnei Rav Chizda. So, Maryanuka Markshisha, Rav Chizda's children, said to Rav Ashi, Achi Amin Ardai. This is what the Nardai said, Mishmei Rav Nachman, Rav Nachman. Haya Smachta. So, the way I understand is that, meaning, if you assume, I think what it's saying is that if you assume that the Mishnah is talking about in Asmachta, and we're saying that comes 3 years, and now the field belongs to Shimon. So this asmachta bizmane kanya. So comes 3 years, at that point it becomes Shimon's. Below zmane lo kanya, but not before then. Amalei. So Rav Ashi says, Kol midei bizmane kani below zmane lo kani. Anytime you have a condition, the condition is triggered at the time that it's met and not before. So right, whenever you make kind of like a stipulation based on a date, it would only kick in at that time. So Dilma Achi Kamisu, maybe this is what you're saying is Ashkeche Bigozmani. So because we're talking about an asmachta, And an asmachta is something that's like outlandish, something that doesn't make any sense, right? That Reuven should borrow $1,000 from Shimon and put in $1 million field on the line. So it doesn't make sense. But if during that time, if Reuven bumps into Shimon during those 3 years, and he reiterates Knei, that, at the end of the V'amalei Knei, what does that say? Ashkel lo begozmani ve'amalei Knei lo efdena od. I'm not going to redeem it, right? Meaning Shimon had lent Reuven $1,000. The stipulation was that if Reuven does not pay Shimon back within 3 years, so then comes 3 years, the field belongs to Shimon. Now the question is, is that real? Asmachta kanya, asmachta lo kanya? Does it work? If within the 3 years, at some point, Reuven sees Shimon and says, Shimon, you're not going to get back your $1,000. Right? V'amalei knei says, I'm not going to, take it. Right? Right? Rashi says, knei, take it. Right? You're going to be kone lo efdenot. I'm not going to be kone. It comes the end. I think it means comes the end of the 3 years. It's going to be yours. Well, okay, he's serious. He didn't have to say anything. And he is saying something. So that's what he's saying is that, at the end of the 3 years, it's going to be yours. So Kani, Basar's money, but if Reuven finds Shimon after the 3 years are up, and again, we're not sure, is it a real kinyan? Is it not a real kinyan? And after the time comes, Reuven sees Shimon, and he says, Knei, v'amalei Knei, and he says, it's yours. Lo Kani. Well, then it wouldn't actually belong to Shimon. My time, how come? Machmas kisufo de ka'amalei, because he's only saying that because he's embarrassed, right? Meaning he's embarrassed to, I guess, say, I don't know. I guess the time is up. Shimon's going to take his field, and he's like, whatever, just take it. I guess he didn't want to make a whole thing out of it. He was embarrassed, but he didn't really mean it. So if during the 3 years he sees Shimon and says, look, Shimon, we're during the 3 years when the time isn't yet up, and he didn't have to say anything, and he says, Shimon, I'm not going to pay you back. The field is yours, so then it belongs to him. But after the field, after the 3 years, when now he's got to give up the field, and he's like, okay, whatever, take it. It doesn't indicate that he really is serious about giving Shimon the field. Veloi da afilu begozmane, and it's not true because actually even during the time, if Reuven sees Shimon nami lo kani, and he says, Shimon, I'm not going to redeem it. It's yours. It still won't belong to Shimon because by the ka'amarle knei kasavar kimati zmane lo lesi lichudan. Right? It sounds like it's uncomfortable, right? Reuven borrowed the $1,000. I guess he probably assumed that he'd be able to pay it back, and he's unable to pay it back. And even if he sees Shimon within the 3 years, when he's not actually on the line yet, right? When he still has time to pay it back, and he says, Shimon, I'm not going to pay it back. It's yours. It's not kone, because he's also saying that, right? He's just saying because he doesn't want at the end of the 3 years, now Shimon's going to come to take his field. It's the whole thing. So he just kind of preempts Shimon and says, I'm not going to pay it back. So that at the end of the 3 years, Shimon's not going to come. I guess he's just going to take the field. He's not going to make a whole big deal out of it. Like, okay, they already made it clear that he can have it. But the truth is, he's really just saying that because he doesn't want the whole scene, and he's embarrassed about it. But he really doesn't plan to. He doesn't really want to give his field to Shimon, and he still does plan to get the money and pay him back. So he doesn't. It's still an outlandish deal that he's not really serious about, and he still would like to pay back Shimon. Amar Papa says, Papa asmachta, when it comes to an asmachta, zimnin kanya, zimnin lo kanya, sometimes it's a kinyan, and it can be taken seriously, and it would belong to Shimon, but sometimes not. If 3 years are up, Shimon hasn't yet received his money, the day comes, and Shimon now can take Reuven's field, and he sees Reuven is in the local pub, drinking, not doesn't look like he's hustling to try to get this money to avoid, because he wants to pay him back versus, have to give up a field. He's like, he basically seems not, seems to have admitted defeat, and he's like, all right, I guess Shimon's taken my field, so he's accepted that fact, and I guess he's Shimon gets the field. But if Shimon sees that the 3 years are up and Reuven's doing whatever he can, he's trying to find money here or there, trying to get money to collect to pay him back, so then clearly Reuven is determined to pay back Shimon, and he does not. He doesn't actually have in mind that Shimon's going to be getting his field. Dilma. Wait, maybe the reason why Reuven is in the local pub, it's not because he's admitted defeat and he's like, all right, whatever, Shimon's getting my field. No, maybe that's not why. Maybe the reason why he's at the pub is because he's so stressed about how he's going to get this money to pay back Shimon, because he doesn't plan on giving Shimon his field, and that's why he's at the local pub. But he has no intention of actually giving his field to Shimon. Alternatively, somebody else is going to be paying Shimon for him, and again, he's planning to pay back Shimon and not give him his field, and that's why he's at the bar, because somebody else is gonna guarantee it for him, and so but he has no plans of giving Shimon his field. Hello, Marvina. Rather says Ravina, ikopit bidmei vadai koni. If he's like selling epis, right, and there doesn't seem to be so meaning he owes Shimon money. The 3 years are up. He needs to get the money to Shimon, otherwise he risks losing his field. Right? If he's like selling things and he's being a stickler for the price and he's not giving any discounts or there's no indication that he's just like trying to get cash quickly. Well then, Kani. So it doesn't seem to be any sense of urgency. It sounds like he's basically accepted that Shimon's getting his field and whatever. It's not like he's hustling to get money to pay back Shimon, because otherwise he would be willing to kind of be more flexible on pricing for the things that he's selling. Omar lei Rav Achmi difti le Ravina duma savar kechid lo tidzil are. Wait, but maybe the reason why he's not being flexible on pricing is because if he makes it seem that he's just like doing a flash sale and trying to quickly get rid of things that he could, because he's in dire needs of money, well then the value of his properties are going to go down, because people realize like, oh, he's in a tough situation, he's going to be willing to take less money for his properties. So therefore maybe he is frantically trying to come up with funds to give Shimon. The reason why he's not budging is because he's nervous that if he doesn't want to give the impression that he's desperate for money, and then all of his assets are going to tank. If he's unwilling to sell any of his property, even at its proper price, meaning he doesn't seem like he's really moving to offload property to get money to pay back Shimon, so then if that's the case, then he doesn't seem to be intent on paying back Shimon, and I guess he's accepted that Shimon's going to take his property. All right. Papa says, Papa, even though the rabbi said asmachta lo kanya. Okay, so if Shimon says to Reuven, I'm lending you $1,000, and if you don't pay me back, so then you have 3 years to pay me back, and if you don't pay me back after 3 years, then I'm taking your land, lo kanya. But aputiki havya lemigba mina. So even though Shimon wouldn't be able to take Reuven's entire property because asmachta lo kanya, but he would at least at the end of 3 years, he would at least be able to take $1,000. Oh no. He would at least be able to take $1,000 worth of the property. He would at least be able to take so comes 3 years. It's not going to trigger a sale of the entire property because asmachta lo kanya, that's crazy. but it would at least be able to trigger that at least $1,000 worth of the property would go to Shimon. So guys, where am I? So Amar Papa Afagavda Amar Abana Asmachtu Lakana Aputiki Hi Lemigba Mina. He would be at least be able to collect $1,000 worth of that property. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the thing is that it would be permanent, so it's still an asmachta, right? The thing is that it would still be an asmachta, right? Because remember, as I pointed out earlier, normally when we say that karka is meshubad to a loan, so if the borrower defaults on the loan, so then the lender recoups his money from his property. But even so, if the borrower comes up with money, he'll give him the money and get back his property, because really the main thing was for the lender to get back his money. Over here, it's actually going to be his. Comes 3 years, Reuben didn't pay back Shimon. It triggers a sale to Shimon, and now it belongs to Shimon. So Amar Rav Huna Brei to Rav Nasan the Rav Papa Mika Amar Le Kani Ligovaina. So Rav Huna Brei to Rav Nasan points out to Rav Papa, but Reuven never said to Shimon that I'm giving you this portion of my land to collect, right? $1,000 worth of my land to collect. Amarle Mazuch Brei Rav Mari Ravina says Mazuch Brei Ravina V'i Omar Kni Lemegba Mine Kani. But I don't understand. Even if he would have said that at the end of 3 years you'll be able to take a portion of my property, of this property, equal to $1,000, but so asmachta lokani, it's still going to be an asmachta, right? We still have this trigger that if 3 years comes and I don't pay you back, this theoretical 3 years comes and I still haven't paid you back, so then now $1,000 worth of my property is going to be yours now forever. That's still an asmachta, and it should not be kanya. El aputiki de Amar Papa Mahi. So what's Rav Papa's aputiki? To Amar Le Lo Yehelecha Peron El Mizo, that your payback will be from this. And I think what it means is that be'etzem, even before the 3 years are up, meaning even before the 3 years are up, either I will pay you, $1,000, or you can get repaid from this property. Either one, but not. Meaning it doesn't get triggered at the end of the 3 years. Already from before then, you can get paid back either from my money, or either I'll pay you $1,000, or you can have $1,000 worth of land, and then comes 3 years, and then the rest of the land is kind of triggered, right? Then Shimon will be kona the rest of the land. The thing is, asmachta lo kanya. So the trigger after 3 years for the entire land is not going to work, but at least he had said that at least $1,000 worth of the land could already be used as payment. Even from before the 3 years, he could simply get paid back with $1,000 worth of the land. But again, it's not an asmachta because it's not going to be triggered. If 3 years comes, it's already from before then, right? There's the option to be paid back from $1,000 worth of his land. I hope that that's accurate. Okay, Shimon sells a field to Ruvain with achrayis, that if Levi comes and takes it from Ruvain, Shimon will guarantee it. Amarle, and Ruvain says to Shimon, so normally nechasim shubadim would be collected from Beinonis. Ruvain, as a request, he asked Shimon, itarfule, I'm buying a field from you, Shimon. If Levi comes and takes it away from me, that's a big headache. If somebody comes and takes it away from me, I would like to get repaid back from your absolute best field. There's best and there's bad, right? So there's Ziboris, the worst fields. There's Beinonis, the sort of average fields. There's Edis, which is the best fields, and then Edish is Mamish the Spitz. So Reuven says, I want to be, in the event that the field gets taken away from me, I want to be paid back from the Spitz. Midi Edis the Islach. Amalei Midi Edis lo Magbina loch. So Shimon says, look, no, I'm not paying you back from the Spitz. The Bina to make him come, I want it. And I only have to give you Beinonis. Ela Magbina loch Midis Acherim de'isli, but I will pay you back from kind of, regular, excellent fields, but not the spitz. The sof tarfu amine, and sure enough, the field was taken away from Reuven, and now he wants to get paid back. So also, badka shakali de'idis, and then came a storm or something and ruined the spitz. So, Sofer Papa lememar me'idis amalei v'akaima. So Papa figured, look, Shimon said that he would pay back Reuven in the event that his field gets taken away. Shimon would pay back Reuven from Edis. The Edis got ruined, but the Edis didn't. Shimon said he was going to pay Reuven from the Edis, so he asked to pay him from the Edis. Omalei, Rav Achim Yidiftu Lavina says, Rav Achim Yidiftu Lavina v'lei malei, but let Shimon say to Reuven, wait, I don't want to pay you from the Edis. Ki amri loch ono magbina loch. When I had told you that I would pay you with the Edis, the hava Edis kaima. It's because at the time there was spitz. Hashta kaim le Edis b'makom Edis. But now that the spitz has been ruined, so now relatively speaking, the Edis takes the place of the Edis, and I want that for myself now. And I would like to only pay you with Beinanis. Rav bar Shva Hava Masik Bey Rav Kahana Zuzay. Rav bar Shva owed Rav Kahana money. Omarle. And Rav bar Shva says to Rav Kahana, Ilo parayna loch lion plani, if I don't pay you back by a certain date, Govi mehai chamra, well then you can collect from this wine. So for a papa lememar, so a papa figured to say, Keminin asmachta lo kanya, when we say that asmachta is not kanya, hanimili ba'ara, that is with regard to land, people don't usually sell their property that often. So, right, meaning if Reuven has real estate, has property, he's probably not going to be selling it so quick, and certainly not for $1,000 loan. So we say asmachta lo kanya. Aval chamra, when it comes to wine, came into the zabune koi, that people sell wine. Kizuze dami, maybe it's like money, and therefore comes that date, and if you didn't pay back the loan, so then sure, take the wine. So it wouldn't be asmachta lo kanya, it wouldn't be so outlandish. It would make sense. Aval chamra came to the zabune koi kizuze dami. Amalei rufuna breder of Yoshua leRapapa hachi amina mishmei deraba kol dei lo kani. Any sort of theoretical, any if lo kani, that's an asmachta and it's a lo kani. And here Rav bar Shva or Rav bar Shaba or something, Rav bar Shaba says to Rav Kahana, if I don't pay you back, then you can take my wine. But that's if it happens, it's a theoretical, it's an asmachta v'lo lo kani. Amr Rav Nachman says Rav Nachman. Now that the rabbis say asmachta lo kanya, hadar ara v'hadri pere. Okay, so if Nachman says, well, the rabbis say so we said, okay, Rabbi Yossi says asmachta kanya, but the rabbis hold asmachta lo kanya, which means that if Shimon says to Reuven, I'm lending you $1,000, you have 3 years to pay me back. You don't pay me back 3 years, I'm taking your field. So the rabbis say asmachta lo kanya, comes 3 years, Reuven hasn't paid back Shimon. Shimon is not entitled to take Reuven's field. What if he did? And what if he eats from the fruits? So says Rav Nachman, what does he say? Rav Nachman says, now that the rabbis say that it's not a good sale, so hadr arav v'hadr peri, so Shimon would have to return the property back to Reuven, as well as the fruits. Maybe the Rav Nachman mechila b'tos lavi mechila. So does that mean that Rav Nachman holds that a mistaken mechila is not valid? That meaning in this case, Reuven says, okay, Shimon, you can have my field. Now it was a mistake. He didn't realize asmachta lo kanya. So really he could have kept his field, but he didn't realize he made a mistake. He gave it to the field. He gave it to Shimon. So, but it sounds like, okay, because it was a mistake, it reverts, right? Mechila b'tos, lo avi mechila. The fact that he said, okay, Shimon, you can have it, but it was mistaken, so it's not really considered like he gave it to Shimon. And therefore he gets it back. But it was said, amocher peres dekel achaveru. if somebody sells the future fruits of a palm tree to his friend, okay, so a farmer has palm trees. The palm trees don't have dates yet, but they will have dates. So it's davar shelo ba la'olam. The dates aren't there yet, but they will be there. And the farmer sells them in advance. So a farmer who sells dates to somebody, ungrown dates to somebody, so long as the dates have not yet grown, there aren't yet dates, so the farmer can always renege. But once they exist, once they have grown, says Rav Huna, it can't be choser because a person can be makne something that doesn't yet exist. So therefore, once the dates come to grow, he can't be choser anymore. Rav Nachman says no. Even once they've grown, the farmer can still renege because you can't make a kinyan on something that does not yet exist. And therefore, the kinyan isn't real, and you can always be choser even after they've grown. But Rav Nachman says of Nachman Modina, but I do admit the imshomet va'achol lo mafkinan mine, that even though the farmer can't make this deal, if the person though however ate the fruits and then the farmer reneges, you can't take it away from the buyer. Right? So even though, right, so Eino the Makna Davar Shelo Ba La'olam, the farmer can't actually make a proper kinyan on something that doesn't actually exist yet. He can always renege, and even after they've already grown. But says Rav Nachman, if the buyer had already taken the dates, so then he can keep them. So here we see that Mechila B'Taus, right, the farmer mistakenly had given the fruits to the buyer, and we're saying Havya Mechila, Be'etzim, he can't take him back. It belongs to the buyer now. Right? So right, so we're not going to take it. So there it sounds like the fact that he was mochel, it is a mechila, you can't take it away. So some zavini yeah, but there's a difference. By the case of the dates, it's a sale, whereas over here it's a loan, right? Meaning Shimon had loaned money to Reuven and loaned $1,000 to Reuven. And he said, if you don't pay me back in 3 years, I get your field. So if Nachman says, in that case, if Shimon took the field, he'd have to give it back with the fruits because that came from a loan. And ribis d'oraisa is with loan, so mechzek ribis, it looks like ribis because it originated as a loan. However, when it comes to the dates, that's a sale, and therefore it's less mechzek ribis. And we would say if the buyer kind of took dates before the farmer realized that he can renege, he can keep the dates. Amar Rava, says Rava, Havi Yosivna Kamidu Rav Nachman. I was sitting before Rav Nachman Uvoi Osve Ono, and I wanted to ask him about Ono, because Ono, as we're going to see in a second, Ono is mechila, right? A person overpays for something, so it's a mechila b'tos, right? The monger told him how much to pay. It was overpriced. He paid it. He didn't know any better. The buyer didn't know any better. He paid whatever price he was sold accidentally because he didn't know that he was overpaying. And we're saying that he can get his money back by ono. So there it's mechila b'tos and lo avyu mechila. It's not an actual mechila. He can get his money back. So why would Rav Nachman say that by the dates mechila b'tos havi mechila and he can keep it? So varei ono the mechila. Where am I? So says Rava that he was sitting before Rav Nachman and he wanted to ask this question: how could you say mechila b'tos havi mechila if from ona it sounds like mechila b'tos lo havi mechila? The odik, and he preempted me chazisa and ilonis. That but what about an ilonis where it's mechila b'tos and havi mechila? V'arei ona the mechila b'tos hi v'lo havi mechila. Right, Rava wanted to say that what about when you overpay for something accidentally, you can get it back. So lo avi mechila. V'odik and Rav Nachman preempted Rava with chazis and ilonis. That but what about an ilonis? Hare ilonis when it comes to Nilonis, the Mechila B'Tos he, that it's Mechila B'Tos, that if a girl gets married, and it turns out that she's Nilonis, so she leaves, as we're about to see, without her ksuba, and she can't get back her nedunya, or things that she brought into the marriage. And even though it was mistaken, she didn't know that she was Nilonis, it was a mistake, it belongs to the husband, she can't get it back. Mechila B'Tos, Havi Mechila. Right? Nilonis, the Mechila B'Tos, Havi Mechila. The Tanan is learning in Mishnah Mima'enes, that a Ketana who dissolves a marriage by refusing to remain in it, Vashnia or a Shnias Larais, Vailonis, or in Ilonis, a girl who turns out to never hit puberty and is unable to have children. In Loim Lo Ksuba, they don't receive, the 200 zuz, they don't receive the Ksuba payment, V'lo Peiris, nor they can't make a claim on the Peiris Nichsei Malug that their husband ate, V'lo Mizonis, and they can't claim payments for Mizonis, V'lo Blois, and they don't get back their Nedunya. Veloi, right? So we see that even though it was Mechila B'Tos, Havi Mechila. Veloi lo ono havi tiyufta velo elonis misayele. And we say neither one of these avenues is actually relevant. Right? Rava's, it's not really a real question. It's not a good question from Ona'a to argue that Mechila B'Tos lo havi Mechila, and it's not a good support from Ilonis to say Mechila B'Tos havi Mechila. Lo Ona'a tiyufte. It's not a question from Ona'a to lo yada. The Isei Ona'a Demochil Gabe, that Ona'a would not be an argument to say Mechila B'Tos Lo Avi Mechila, because he didn't even know that he was being mochel. Meaning that when a person is overcharged for something, he doesn't know how much it costs in the first place. He didn't even know that he was overcharged to be mochel in the first place to say, it's okay. He didn't even know that it was not okay. He paid the price that was quoted to him. It's also not a proof for an Ilonis to say that Mechila B'Tos Havi Mechila, because there it's actually a real Mechila. The Nichala, the Tepuk Allah Shmad, the Ishus that bringing this into the the Nedunya into the marriage was beneficial to her, and that now she people assume that she's a married woman, and that has certain societal benefits, and therefore that wasn't a mistaken Mechila. She it was okay bringing those things into that marriage. That was Daf Samach Vav of Masechta BavaMetzia. We discussed the sugya of from our Mishnah, when Shimon gives a loan to Ruvain and says, if you don't pay back in 3 years, I get your property. And then we had all sorts of discussions about asmachta kanya, asmachta lo kanya. In what cases can an asmachta maybe be kanya? So got a lot of interesting stuff. Peace out.